DeMint, who leads Senate Republicans on the Joint Economic Committee, for spearheading this hearing on this very important and timely topic, and I would yield to Senator DeMint for the opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate all of your work and your staff's work to put this together. And I want to thank all of our panelists for taking their time to be here. A couple of months ago in Washington, everyone was in a panic of what might happen if we couldn't borrow any more money. The President mentioned we might not be able to pay Social Security. We talked about reneging on payments to contractors. We talked about a pretty dire situation if the United States could not borrow any more money. But that debt limit was an arbitrary debt limit set by Congress, one that we could change by a simple debt limit deal. My concern, and I think of a number of Americans, is where is the real debt limit? When do we hit the wall where no one will lend us any more money? And perhaps the feds can't even print enough money. At what point is there not enough credit in the world to continue to finance not only the United States, but all the debtor nations? You know, under CBO's alternative budget forecast, their model essentially stops working in the early 2040s because of excessive U.S. debt. Just want to look at a couple of charts here of where we see the debt going relative to the GDP. There's no way we're going to get that far. My concern is, can we borrow another $2.5 trillion? With the Federal Reserve apparently is buying a lot of our debt already. Is there still a market for the kind of debt that the United States needs to sell, despite the commitment to reduce our deficit? And again, deficit is a Washington term, the year-to-year shortfall. We've said we would reduce that year-to-year shortfall $2.1 trillion over the next 10 years, giving the impression to Americans that we're actually lowering the debt, when, as I'm sure all of our panelists know, that we're going to continue to increase the debt. It may be 8, 10 trillion, we're not sure. But again, if we look at our charts, I'm not sure we can borrow that much money. But if we look here, that what we're trying to discover today, or determine or guess at, where is the tipping point for America, beyond which the interest rates will rise sharply, economic growth will decline dramatically? As we look at the potential tipping point for Greece and Ireland and Portugal and U.S. As a debt, as a percent of GDP, we see the United States is right there where these other nations are. Is the only thing that makes us different that we can print money and that we're the world's reserve currency? These other countries can't print their own. But hopefully our panelists will help us sort this out. And what does the United States look like once we reach that tipping point, when we hit a very real debt limit? How high will interest rates go? What will be the borrowing cost if we can, in fact, borrow the money? Will the Fed just print money? These are things we're trying to anticipate. The Fed is clearly engaged in unprecedented action, including the purchase of trillions of dollars of U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. You know, since the financial crisis in 2008, the Fed's balance sheet has tripled to $2.9 trillion. As we can see here what the Federal Reserve has done with very little notice by Congress, which effectively means we're printing money and buying debt. So how could the Fed's policies affect the tipping point? What can we expect? There are a lot of questions, and certainly we need to know, how long can the Federal Reserve monetize our debt before the world begins to lose confidence in our currency? So my challenge to the panelists today is, all politics aside, all partisanship aside, our country is drowning in debt. The plan by this government is to continue borrowing money for the foreseeable future. Any talk of balancing the budget is considered extreme. What does that mean for our country? How much time do we have, and what's going to happen when we can no longer borrow money? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.